Families with children with disabilities deal with a host of emotions and issues during the pre-birth through school-age years. What do you think are some of the transition and adulthood issues? As we proceed with this discussion, think about the similarities and differences between the issues families face during the pre-birth through school-age years versus the transition and adulthood years. Literature talks about children making the transition from high school to adult life, but there are also transitions that family members experience as a child grows older. Families have talked about 3 particular transitions that they experience. The first one is the bureaucratic transition. During this transition period, families move from a school system that entitles them to services to an adult service system where they need to be eligible for services and may not be. The professionals that the family works with change, and the people that provide the services are no longer in one location. As young adults with disabilities exit high school and move into adulthood, the people for providing support through these services have different titles and different names. For example, they may begin to work with vocational rehabilitation counselors, case managers, or direct support staff, and it's unclear to families what these roles actually involve. So there is a change in the bureaucracy as families exit the school system. The second transition is called the family life transition. This transition involves dramatic pattern changes in the family's life. During the school years, there was always a time between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. when the family knew the child was supervised and at school. This schedule is very consistent and convenient for working parents. However, when the child leaves school and transitions into adult life, there is no guarantee that the child will have the same level of supervision. Individuals who are able to gain employment or attend vocational programs may be gone at odd hours, causing the family to reorganize their schedule in order to assist with transportation or other areas of need. Patterns of family life also change if the individual attends a day program or moves into a group home. The activities that took place during the school year shift and bring about a reorganization of how the family will interact and carry on with new day-to-day activities. You might think, isn't this what all families deal with when a child transitions from school to adult life? The answer is yes. However, having a child with a disability during the transition years brings a host of additional issues and needs. The third and probably most critical transition is called the status transition. During this transition, the child with a disability is now an adult member of the family, and their status in the family needs to change. It is appropriate to ask a child not to eat too many cookies. However, it is not so appropriate to tell that to an adult. In our society, we respect the rights of adults to make their own decisions about their life, which may sometimes conflict with the parents' views. Parents and other family members may feel that they have the best judgment and therefore should make these decisions for the person with the disability. How much freedom should a young adult with a disability be given in terms of decision making? How do you respect a person's status as an adult member of the family while making sure they don't put themselves in danger? These are the major issues for families. They must figure out how to empower their young adult children to make their own decisions while also protecting them from exploitation and risk. To summarize, there are 3 transitions that families go through that are important to remember. The bureaucratic transition involves a change of agency personnel and professionals in a person's life. The family life transition involves a change in schedule that the family experiences. The status transition is associated with a change in the child's status in the family, with respecting that the family member is now an adult and has all the rights and privileges that come with being an adult. Aside from the transitions that families face, there is a laundry list of adult life issues that impact adults with disabilities, including sexuality, launching, autonomy, marriage and children, long-term planning, aging parents, and death. As young people with disabilities grow older, they will have sexual needs just like any other adult. Families may not be comfortable with this topic and for the most part seem to be concerned about their child's vulnerability. It is important to stress age appropriateness with family members and extended family members. Oftentimes, individuals with more significant disabilities or certain disability conditions are encouraged to show affection as children, but as they age, it may not always be appropriate to show the same type of affection. It can become a real problem if somebody touches or hugs too frequently at an older age. Sexual education for children with disabilities may need to focus on basic facts related to sexual relationships, but also on age-appropriate behaviors that are expected of adults. Launching is another area that families deal with as their children age. Launching refers to a child moving out of a parent's home. It is hard to establish adult status in many ways unless one moves out of the family home. Adults with disabilities often have a difficult time with launching because of their heightened level of support needs. It is also very expensive to live independently and maintain a job that pays well enough to support oneself. Aside from the expenses, a great deal of other supports, such as cooking, cleaning, and laundry, may have been provided by the family. These are all skills that the individual needs to have mastered in order to successfully launch from the parent's home. Research does show that children who receive special education services while in school are more likely to continue to live with their parents well into their adult years. Autonomy relates to self-governance and independence. How much autonomy should a person with a disability have in terms of their own decision-making? What factors do we need to consider when making this decision? With individuals with more significant disabilities, the family may petition the court for guardianship so they can maintain some control over decision-making on behalf of their child. For example, some adults with disabilities struggle with managing finances. In this case, the parents may petition the court for guardianship so that any decisions made regarding finances be made with the parents. This situation could help protect the individual from exploitation as well as falling into financial distress. Many of us have the desire to get married and have children at some point in our life. This is often an area of controversy for individuals with disabilities. Families may be very supportive if the individual has good functional skills and is capable of living a self-directed life. However, for individuals with greater needs, this can become a topic of concern. Some individuals may really want to have a family of their own. They have witnessed the relationships in their own families and have similar expectations for themselves. Yet, it can be very difficult for the family as a whole when the realization sets in that marriage and children may not be a possibility. Long-term planning is a recommendation for adults with disabilities and is something that is supposed to be discussed during the transition years. During the early childhood years, taking a day-at-a-time approach may be a good strategy. However, as the individual reaches adulthood, long-term planning is an important proactive approach. It is important that the family members include the person with the disability in the long-term planning process, which often includes looking at guardianship, residential, legal, and financial plans. Long-term planning is all too commonly neglected and can be very distressing for parents because these issues can carry a host of emotions. Research indicates that families who engage in long-term planning often have more peace of mind and are more comfortable with the path their child is on. Given this, families should be counseled and encouraged to set up some long-term plans for their children. The next issue we would like to talk about is aging parents. We will all have to deal with aging parents and family members in our lives. However, for individuals with disabilities, the family is usually the service provider. The vast majority of adults with disabilities continue to live at home and are taken care of or supported by their parents. As parents get older themselves, they begin to lose their capacity to provide the level of care and supervision that the individual needs. Most parents of adult children with disabilities can be expected to be survived by their child, so it is important for families to consider who will provide care when the parents are no longer able. Whether this means a transfer of guardianship to a sibling, moving into a community residence run by an organization, or transitioning to supported living, this needs to be thought through and done before the parents lose their capacity to provide care and make informed decisions. The final part of our discussion includes the issue of death. When a person with a disability dies and leaves the family faces a big adjustment period. There has not been much research on this topic, but researchers have noted that sometimes outsiders view the death of an individual with a disability as a sort of release of burden on the family. However, it is important to remember that regardless of the impact of the individual on the family, the individual was loved. Families need to grieve and mourn for their loss without such negative reaction from others. I would like to end our discussion of families throughout the life cycle with this short clip on parents of children with disabilities, There Today. As you watch, think about the comments and how you could help. While it is important to understand the family as a whole and issues related to raising children with disabilities, it is also important to include a discussion about siblings and sibling relationships. Sibling relationships are the longest on earth, and they tend to be idealized in popular culture. When looking at the relationships between typically developing siblings and siblings with disabilities, the research suggests that the vast majority remain both emotionally and instrumentally included in their siblings' life throughout the entire lifespan. They are often involved in ways that other siblings are not, and it is very rare if a sibling is totally disengaged from their sibling with a disability. Siblings of children with disabilities report enrichment as a result of growing up with a sibling with a disability. They report feeling that they became more mature at a younger age, and they also became more tolerant of differences in others. Only a small number of siblings report resentment and feeling that they missed out on something because of their sibling with a disability. There are a number of issues that siblings face when growing up with a sibling with a disability. Some issues that have been noted through the research suggest that the social hierarchy of the family changes. There is a switch where the child with a disability becomes the youngest child in the family, even if chronologically they are older than the sibling without a disability. Another issue involves heightened stress in families that have children with disabilities, which can affect this sibling. There is a risk of overshadowing if all the focus is on the sibling with the disability and none of the focus is on the typically developing children. There may also be many economic sacrifices. Siblings also reported that when they were growing up, they assumed responsibility at times for the physical care of their members with a disability and felt responsible for protecting their sibling when they were outside of the household. Some siblings reported that they felt some pressure from the parents to overachieve, and they felt that the parent wanted them to do this to compensate in some way for the things that their sibling with a disability could not do. Siblings have also shared some common reactions about guilt and jealousy. As adults, siblings do continue to be involved in the lives of their siblings with disabilities. Adult siblings continue to feel a sense of responsibility that other siblings don't feel. This could affect their career plans as far as career path and feeling like they should not relocate, change jobs, or take a promotion. It can also affect marriage plans. For instance, does the significant other understand and support the family and the sibling, and is he or she accepting of the obligations? Also, if the disability is a hereditary condition, then it might influence their childbearing plans. Managing the sibling relationship after the birth of a child is another issue to consider. Siblings also need information about the disability. They want to understand the disability, and parents shouldn't treat it as a secret. Parents should provide information and keep communication open about the sibling with the disability. Also, it is important the sibling have input into any decision that affects them in the family. That doesn't mean they should have the final say, but they should have some input. What most siblings seem to want is a balance between enmeshment and disengagement. A healthy middle ground where the sibling makes some contributions to the family's effort on behalf of the person with the disability, but also has their own interests and their own opportunities is seen as the best way. Siblings should assume some responsibility and be involved with the family as a whole in terms of contributing to both the care and support of the person with a disability. But siblings should also have their own interests and their own lives as well. That is most likely to breed a healthy relationship where when they get into the adulthood life, the sibling without the disability will continue to want to be a source of support and be involved in the life of their sibling with the disability.
Sometimes I feel embarrassed, guilty, ashamed, isolated, resentful, responsible, and pressured. I have been graced with amazing perspective and insight, social awareness, appreciation, tolerance, pride, loyalty, and an abundant heart.
You with the sad heart, don't be discouraged. Don't realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all in the darkness who inside you make you feel so small. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy. Can remember when I last saw you laughing. If this world makes you crazy and you take it all you can, then you call me up because you know I'll be there and I'll see your true colors shining through. I'll see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let us show your true colors. Your true colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Can't remember when I last saw you laugh. Show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy. Can remember when I last saw you laughing. If this world makes you crazy and you take it all you can, then you call me up because you know I'll be there and I'll see your true colors shining through. I'll see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let us show your true colors. Your true colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Can't remember when I last saw you laugh. If this world makes you crazy, you take it all you can, then you call me up because you know I'll be there and I'll see your true